why does this make a difference? Well, let's start talking about APY, because when you calculate APY on your system, there is an assumption built into the definition of APY. And this is the catch. This is where a lot of times people get confused. So APY assumes that compounding is constantly happening. So it's the interest rate, assuming that all of the money is staying in the account and not being withdrawn, okay? Or not that, so that interest is always there. Crediting is irrelevant to this. If they pull it out, that doesn't change anything. But the idea is if you allow crediting and they start pulling the money out, that's going to reduce their earnings, okay? But crediting is not a factor when we're calculating APY. So let's go through the example. Go ahead and flip to page 11, and there's an example that's laid out, and it assumes a couple of things. First, it assumes that there's a $100 deposit. We're keeping round numbers here so that it's easy to follow. $100 deposit, and there's a 10% interest rate, and it compounds quarterly. Now, if you have this product at your bank with a 10% interest rate that compounds quarterly, give me a call because I want to buy it, okay? I want to get involved in this. If that's the type of action you're giving out, that's what I want to be involved in. So I know this is a high number, but it's round, so it's a little easier to get the process across. But so we're going to assume this amount. So the initial deposit is $100 in the first quarter. You compound that interest, and it's $2.50. And so then the balance, so the $2.50 is what they get back. And so that quarterly balance, at the end of that, once you've compounded it, now their balance has gone up by that $2.50. So logic on the next month, that balance actually, then they're getting more of an interest payment because it's on a higher balance. And so this is kind of logically, this is the beauty of compounding interest. On the third quarter, now they're getting a higher interest payment because over time, that balance is slowly nudging up and they're getting more and more money. That's the benefit of the deal. So by the fourth quarter, the balance, even though it's a 10% interest rate, you see that they've actually made $10.38 as opposed to just $10. So that's the, even though the minimum balance is out there, the interest rate is 10%, but that APY is the 10.38. And it's because, as we're kind of seeing on the screen there, the amounts are increasing over time, and that gets calculated into it. So what happens if the interest is actually withdrawn? And in some cases, you can set up some of these time deposits or certain types of deposits where that interest rate is either allowed to be pulled out, or I've even seen where that interest amount is actually transferred automatically into another account because they want to have access to those funds. So that if that's the case, well, then they're not increasing the balance. The time amount stays the same. They're getting $2.50 or 10% every quarter. And so it's not increasing. So what does that do to the APY? Is it 10% because they're only getting 10%, even though you've set it up that way where they're pulling it out? And the answer is no. APY assumes that they're going to remain on deposit until maturity, so that even though it's set up where they're only going to be getting the benefit of that 10% that the interest rate is, the APY doesn't change because there's an assumption built into the term that says that interest or that amount of money is going to stay in there until maturity. So that's where things can get confusing. So, in a lot of these circumstances, if you've got that monthly crediting situation, the APY, it looks like it's off. It looks like you have, kind of a distortion of the APY versus how it's actually set up if you have that monthly crediting set up. And the key here is to be able to explain it. Because, a lot of times you have folks who come in and they may say, look, you told me that my APY was 10.38%, but when I look at this, I'm only getting 10% over time. And the reason is because of crediting. The compounding didn't change. That's still working the way that it's always supposed to work to calculate the APY. But that crediting process or the withdrawing process has actually reduced the benefit. And that's why it's required on your initial disclosures to say that that withdrawals may reduce earnings. Okay, and it's because that APY assumes that the funds are going to stay in the account for the entire portion of the time. So the APY stays the same.